Let me tell you a little secret about selling on Etsy. The listings that do well, they're not always the ones with the most complicated designs or the fanciest mockups. They're not even the ones that have the perfectly researched keywords. They're the ones that make the right buyer stop scrolling and say, wait, that's so me, or oh my gosh, this is the perfect gift for my husband. That moment of connection and resonance is what makes someone favorite your item, add it to their cart, maybe even share it with a friend. And that is how a product goes from just being seen to being loved. If this is your first time here, welcome. My name is Mandy. I've run a handmade business since 2017 and discovered print on demand in 2022. Since then, I've scaled to more than $500,000 in sales, all without touching a single shipping box. This video is part of a 5-part series where I'm walking you through the exact framework I use to grow a top 1% Etsy print-on-demand shop so that you can start or grow yours with a little more clarity and a little less overwhelm. So far, we've talked about choosing your product focus and getting your listing seen by the right buyers. And today, we're diving into the second pillar, getting your listings loved, meaning how to create designs that your ideal customer actually wants to buy, even if you're not a trained designer. I'll walk you through why connection to an identity matters, examples of triggers that help reinforce that connection, my non-negotiable research habit for gathering design inspiration, and 3 real design walkthroughs you can model in your own shop. If you missed the first couple videos, I'll link them for you below. Just make sure you hit that subscribe button and the little bell so you don't miss the rest, because these videos are packed with examples, strategy, and my best tips for helping you finally get momentum in your shop. All right, so let's talk about the secret behind designs that actually sell. Because here's the reality. People don't just buy products on Etsy. They buy the feeling that product gives them, or they buy for a specific purpose, like gifting. How many times have you impulse bought something not because you actually needed it, but because it made you laugh out loud at how relatable it was? Or purchase something that reminds you of your favorite family member or coworker for an upcoming birthday. I think about my own husband, who is not at all into fashion and hates shopping, but literally owns more t-shirts than I do because he finds these shirts with sarcastic tech humor because he's a computer guy, or one with dad humor about lawn mowing, and had to have them because they seem like they were made just for him. Why does that happen? It's not just about a cute design. When I think about my own designs that sell the best and what makes people like my husband buy shirts on repeat, it's about connection. Connection is what turns browsers into buyers and buyers into repeat customers. This isn't something I've talked really in depth a lot about on my channel, but it's played a really big role in the thought process behind my own designs that sell, because it becomes much less about chasing trends and much more about understanding and focusing in on who you are selling to, even if you have multiple niches in your shop like I do. And here's the best part. You don't need to be a professional designer to do that. You just need to understand who you're creating for and what might make them or their recipient smile, tear up, laugh, or say, "This is so perfect." And that's what we're going to dive into next. The emotional triggers I rely on over and over again in my best-selling designs, and how you can use them to spark connection with your own ideal customer. So what exactly does connection look like in a design? Well, connection usually happens when a product taps into something deeper, an identity, a belief, a personal story, or a memory. That's why I like to think of the design process as almost like creating a trigger. Something that pulls at your buyer's emotions in a subtle but powerful way. It doesn't always mean tears or deep feelings. Sometimes the emotional connection is as simple as recognition. A buyer might see a phrase, an image, or a theme and thinks, that's the one, or yep, that's me. That's the small spark that we're after. It's the little things that help your designs feel more personal and relevant, and in turn is what helps someone feel seen, understood, or even just smile to themselves as they add to cart. Let's walk through a few of the most effective emotional triggers that consistently work well. Number one is humor. Humor is one of the fastest ways to create connection. It works best when it's specific, especially when it overlaps with an identity or truth your buyer can relate to. This is where we can take notes on all of those unhinged or ironic memes out there, like calm down, I've done this on a mannequin, which taps into the nurse or medical niche with relatable humor, or even design elements combined with words or phrases that someone in that niche will really understand, like this football design in the form of a playbook. But the plays are the funny things that a football mom would relate to, like food run or clap and look happy or pay for everything. This also applies to the concept of gifting. Some of the most loved designs out there aren't bought for the buyer themselves. They're bought as gifts. Perhaps someone is needing a relatable gift for someone turning 40, which in this case is combining humor with a gifting opportunity, perhaps for a best friend or coworker or sister. These aren't about random jokes. They're about inside jokes that your ideal customer gets instantly. They are something that others might not fully understand, but they will. When your ideal buyer reads a design and laughs because it's true, they're way more likely to buy it, wear it, and share it. The second trigger is around designs or concepts that are heartfelt or sentimental. This is one of the most powerful design categories because it touches on things like remembrance, grief, or honoring someone or something with deep emotional value. These designs aren't always flashy, but they mean everything to the buyer. Think personalized gifts for pet loss to celebrate their memory, like this blanket, or keepsake vow journals that preserve an important moment from the day. These could also be keepsakes for teachers that serve as a sweet reminder of gratitude, like this ornament that a parent might buy as a gift from their student to give to their teacher in appreciation during the holidays. These designs aren't about trends. They're often about comfort or love or carrying a connection or special moment forward. They are about simplicity in the messaging. And when done well, they can become some of the most meaningful purchases your customers will ever make. And finally, identity. Tapping into identity are the designs that say something about who the buyer is, who they love, or who they were. They proudly reflect someone's role, passion, personality, significant other, or personal memories. For example, I grew up with cassette tapes and floppy disks and find this combination of colors not only nostalgic, but relatable. Or someone might want to proudly display their dog mom status with a trendy shirt. When you pair that identity with personalization, the emotional connection becomes even stronger with that identity. For example, adding things like names or years or locations, like this mug example for a PhD graduation gift that includes a name and a year. It doesn't have to be complicated. And here's the kicker. If you've seen the previous video and this concept of identity sounds familiar, good, you were paying attention because it should. This is exactly where identity overlaps with what we talked about with getting seen. Because here's where it all starts to hopefully click. The goal with these emotional triggers isn't to use them in isolation, because visibility and connection work together. The same customer identity that helps your product get found is the same one that helps your product get loved. And that's the point. This is where niche plus emotion or tone equals connection. Suddenly, you're not just slapping a random funny quote on a shirt. You're designing something snarky for retiring teachers, or something heartfelt for a brand new grandma, or something relatable for a millennial mom who's just trying to survive another chaotic school morning with her iced coffee. Our identities play a massive role, not just in life, but in the things we choose to spend money on. When your design reflects something real about the buyer or the person they're buying for, you're no longer selling just another product. You're creating a connection and a reason for someone to want to buy. So whether you're designing a mug or a sweatshirt or an ornament, ask yourself, what emotion does this spark? Who would feel seen by this or resonate with it? And could it be gifted or proudly used for a specific moment or memory? Now, at this point, you might be thinking, okay, Mandy, this totally makes sense. But what if I'm not naturally gifted in the ways of coming up with clever phrases or design ideas that are going to resonate with a specific buyer? First of all, welcome to the club. Most of us don't walk around with a magical database of hilarious or emotionally resonant phrases stored in our brains. That's precisely why I created tools like my free Niche Creator GPT to help you generate niche-specific design ideas with real connections. And I'll show you exactly how that works in just a bit. But before we jump into combining niches and triggers or opening up a blank design screen, there's one important piece we have to cover first: inspiration. Because you can't create connections if your creative well is bone dry. So next, I want to walk you through my non-negotiable creative habit: discovery scrolling. This is the starting place for how I intentionally gather inspiration, spot design trends, and turn what I find into a reusable trend board that makes designing easier and sometimes way more fun. And it's how I come up with designs that don't just get seen, but that actually get loved. Because sometimes part of getting loved is also about leveraging design concepts that already have proof of being loved. Discovery scrolling is exactly what it sounds like. I'm literally scrolling through Etsy or even Pinterest or niche-specific shops, but I'm not doing it mindlessly. I'm doing it like a product researcher, like a buyer behavior detective, like someone trying to discover, get it, what customers are actively buying. Because staying on top of demand and market trends is crucial, especially in a visual business like print on demand. It's not just about what people are searching for, it's about what kinds of designs they're actually buying. That's what we're after. For step one of this, I'm going to head to Etsy and start with broad searches like trendy sweatshirts or women's shirts or mom gifts or even Christmas ornaments. These kinds of super broad categories are where trends start to pop before they trickle down into more specific niches. One little trick I like to do with this is first filter by physical products to just kind of weed out some of the digital. And then I turn on Star Seller. Not because I'm looking for the Star Seller badges, because then I will head up to the URL, look for the word star, and change that to best. This just pops some more popular listings to the top. As you scroll, don't just look for bestseller badges still. We're also looking at additional clues of demand, like the popular now tags or little red magic words inside the listing that say things like in 20 plus cart or in demand. Perhaps it was purchased 10 times in the last 24 hours. Remember how we use those as niche demand proof in getting seen in the last video? We use it here to spot demand for getting loved with our designs as well. Because remember, these are indicators of what's resonating and working right now. And the beauty of this is that you don't have to stay inside your niche on this one. Some of my best-selling designs come from outside of my niche, but I brought them into it in a new way when we get to the designing. This is why we start broad for the purposes of this part of discovery scrolling. And it's also how you avoid getting stuck in some of the same repetitive styles everyone else is using. Step 2 here then is to be a sponge, not a copycat. The goal here is to absorb, not copy. Let your brain soak it all in as you scroll. The styles, the design structures and layouts, the color palette, the font choices, the vibe of the listing, even the mock-ups and photos. Over time, your brain starts to piece things together. As I'm doing this, I'm also grabbing screenshots of anything that stands out, or if I'm noticing any sort of design patterns popping up repeatedly that I might want to take advantage of. This is how you train your creative intuition. This is how you become someone who knows what's working and, more importantly, why. This is how you create designs with proof of demand, which, by the way, is a key part of getting something loved. People are buying a certain style or tone or phrase structure again and again. That's not by accident. That's demand. So instead of guessing, you're learning from what's already selling. A little bonus tip here, do this regularly. Make it a habit. Set a goal to do this even just 10 to 20 minutes a day or a few times a week, especially if you're still working on building your design muscle. Treat it like training. And you don't always have to limit yourself to Etsy either. You can look at Pinterest trends or even the bestseller section on trendy websites like Anthropologie or Urban Outfitters are also great resources, especially if your niches happen to shop there. If you're designing for an outdoorsy niche, check out REI or Eddie Bauer to see what's trending for that demographic as well. Step 3 then is to capture it in a trend board. Now, as you do this discovery scrolling, your brain's probably going to start buzzing with ideas. But here's the problem. If you don't save those ideas somewhere, they will disappear. This is where my trend board trick comes in. This is going to be your visual toolbox, your inspiration vault, and your Pinterest meets print on demand cheat sheet. Here's how I do it. First, open up a large blank design board wherever you normally create your designs. Upload your screenshots from your discovery scrolling. Then, once you have them in there, you can organize them loosely. You could organize this by fonts. You could have a little section for different color palettes that stand out. You could have a section for aesthetics or different phrases maybe that you're seeing. Whatever makes sense, depending on where you're looking and what types of designs you're seeing. You could also add in little text notes if you need to remind yourself why you saved something. You are not trying to make a perfect mood board here. Seriously, don't obsess and try to make it cute. We're looking for function here. You're trying to build a library of ideas that future you can reference when you sit down to actually design. So that instead of opening up a blank page and staring at the screen like, what now? You'll have a vault of real, proven, demand-back inspiration ready for you to mix and match and combine with your niches. And the best part, it becomes a living document. You can keep adding to it and keep coming back to it. And eventually it starts doing half the creative heavy lifting for you. That's the magic of discovery scrolling paired with a trend board. You're not just chasing ideas, you're building a system that helps you create intentionally. And that is how you start working towards building designs that don't just fill your shop, but that start moving towards getting loved. All right. Now that you've gathered inspiration and have some ideas on how to connect emotion with a clear customer identity, let's actually walk through some real examples of how this all comes together. I'm going to take you through 3 different kinds of design approaches I personally use all the time. Simple text-based designs, designs that leverage AI and demand, and trend combining. First up, we're going to do a text-based design, and I'm going to use a phrase generated by one of my favorite tools, which is my niche creator GPT. If you haven't used this yet, it's a free resource I created that combines niches and tone and emotion to generate design ideas faster and get you brainstorming faster without getting stuck or sounding too generic. So, for this example, let's say we're designing for the sports parent niche. Specifically, let's go with soccer moms. I happen to love this niche because I am, in fact, a soccer mom. When we go to the niche GPT, it's going to ask us for a niche and a tone. And this is where we're connecting the identity and the emotion. So first, I'm just going to type in soccer mom into the prompt, and then it's going to ask me if I want to incorporate a tone or if I want to integrate it with any other theme, like cross-niching with coffee or wine, for example. For now, I'm just going to go with humor, and then let's say no additional theme for now. And then it's going to go to work. So it's going to give me some design concepts, and really what I'm going for here is the part where it gives me funny phrases and slogans, because this is where we're going to get into text-based concepts that have that specific tone to them. It'll also give me some AI image generator prompts. These are going to be shorter to just get you started, and then any potential micro niches and cross niches where you might have some potential to scale these further. For now, we're really focused on these funny phrases that it provided for us. One of the things I noticed about several of these phrases is there's a lot of themes around snacks or gear. And so I was kind of drawn to this last one that says, soccer mom, I'm just here for the taco trucks after the game. And I'm going to make a slight edit to this in our design and say, I'm just here for the post-game snacks. And this could be relevant to either me as the mom eating the snacks or being the one bringing the snacks. Either way, it could be interpreted both ways and still work. So let's take that then over to Kindle to create an actual design. To turn this into an actual design, I'm going to leverage the proven idea that simple sells, meaning if I have strong text that connects as a statement, I can go really simple on the design itself. And if you don't believe me, there are entire shops devoted to almost entirely text-based designs. So here in Kindle, I'm going to add my text first and add in, I'm just here for the post-game snacks. And then we'll get that situated here front and center. Change the color to white just so it's easier to see. And then I like to use similar here. I'm going to leverage that design trend of kind of almost a typewriter font. So if I just type in typewriter or start typing it, you can see that I get several options here. I like several of these. I've used Jackwrite before. One that I also like is Special Elite. It gives it almost kind of a worn look to it. So I'm going to go with that one for now. I'm just going to resize it so that it fills this space. And I'm also just going to shrink the space in between the lines here just a little bit so that it's closer together and looks like it's just one short statement. And that's literally our design. It's simple in its construction, but carries a message that connects with a clear customer identity in this case. And not only that, but even in its simplicity, the design structure itself, the font, the way it looks, is rooted in proven marketplace demand. Okay, now let's take it one step further. This next approach is one of my favorites because it's where creative flow meets smart strategy with a little help from AI. Sometimes we don't start with a phrase. Sometimes we start with maybe a visual style that's already in demand from our discovery scrolling. And then we adapt it with a niche and emotional layer that makes it sellable. In this case, we're leaning into a trending visual style called lino cut florals, which I've seen everywhere lately in high-performing Etsy listings, and it's really just kind of a monochromatic stamping style. But instead of just copying what's out there and making more florals, we're going to make it specific. We're going to combine that trend with a clear customer identity. So let's say I want to target a sourdough-loving artisan baking starter feeding community. I've validated that there's clear niche demand and can see several bestsellers. Little fun fact here, Taylor Swift recently shared that sourdough making is one of her current obsessions, so of course it's having an extra little moment of demand as well. Just don't include any Taylor Swift mentions in your design or keywords, please. Focus on the interest, not the influencer here. I'm going to jump into Kittl and use their built-in AI tool, which now includes a bunch of new image generation models as well, including the brand new Nano Banana. I know, it's fun to say. Oftentimes when I'm using a prompt in Kittl for AI, I like to try a few different of the image generation models just to see kind of what styles I like and which ones work best depending on what I'm using. Then as I'm trying out the different styles, I simply select which one I want to use and then let it generate. Once I have a design that I'm ready to use and I want to get it on the design file, if I don't already have this on the size of my normal design templates, like for a t-shirt, for example, I'm using this to generate several. Normally when I come in and use these, I've got my regular template and t-shirt size ready to go. But in this case, let's say I want to use this one. First, I want to make sure I remove the background because by default, it will be on there in Kittl. And then once I've got the background removed, in this case, I'm just going to slide it over to my normal design template, expand it, and then if needed, especially if I'm working with a larger template, a larger design size, I want to make sure I upscale it as well. And I can do all of that right here in Kittl, which is part of why I like to use it, is because it makes that workflow a little more seamless and I don't have to use an additional tool or anything else. Then once it's ready, I'm simply downloading the image as a transparent PNG and it's ready to roll. And here's what I love about this approach. We didn't even need any words. That's the power of connection through design. In this case, it's not about a funny quote or a bold message. It's about the way the illustration itself speaks to the customer. The textures, the symbolism, the sourdough motifs hidden in the florals. The style draws people in, but it's the subtle integration of a clear customer identity that makes it unique. This is how a product gets both seen and loved. So remember, not every design needs words to make an impact. Sometimes visuals alone are enough if they're rooted in demand and created with intention. If you want to try this prompt yourself or use it to adapt for your own niche, I'll provide a link below where you can grab it for free, along with the niche GPT we looked at earlier. I share prompts like the one I use in this one weekly in my AI BizBot group. This is one of my mini memberships, and each week I highlight a design trend or popular product on Etsy and convert it into AI image prompts using this process of connecting a design to a customer identity. You will also have access to all 8 of my custom bot besties in this group that are built based on my own strategies, trainings, and best practices. So if that's something that interests you, I'll drop that information for you below as well. And for our third example, let's blend everything we've talked about so far. We're going to combine multiple marketplace trends, emotional connection, and clear customer identity into one design. For this next one, I designed it for teachers, one of the strongest evergreen niches on Etsy. But with strong demand comes some strong competition sometimes. Remember what we talked about in our last episode together? So we want to stand out by combining elements that we know are already working both in the niche and more broadly as well. To do that, I'm going to start by looking at what's been performing well. So when we look at all of these examples, what do we see across them? Bright pastel colors, clearly popular in teacher listings. Repeating text, this places emphasis on a specific word or statement. Chalk-style fonts, instantly recognizable and aligned with that kind of classroom vibe. And then personalization. Names or grades add that extra little emotional identity trigger and make it also giftable and unique to one person or moment. And then Here is my completed design example for this one. I use a chalk font that I got from Creative Fabrica. Most teachers aren't actually using chalkboards these days in classrooms, but it still instantly makes you think of a teacher when you see it, and in some ways evokes a little bit of nostalgia as well. I pulled the color palette from a different design in demand and alternated the letter colors so that the design feels kind of cheerful and teacher approved. Another design trend is sandwiching a handwritten font between bold font layers. So I brought that in here as well instead of having just a name at the bottom. I intentionally used a handwritten style font with the personalization that adds an even deeper connection and reinforces that kind of classroom chalkboard vibe. What makes this design so effective is not just the words. In fact, much like the last one, the design itself does most of the talking. From the playful chalk-style font that mimics a classroom feel to the bright pastel color palette we already know teachers love from scrolling popular listings, to the handwritten personalization that adds a custom touch. This is an example of how to subtly weave together what's already working with what makes your ideal buyer feel a connection. And as always, it's rooted in proof that this customer identity is already engaging with these similar types of visual elements. This is the kind of product that gets loved because it was designed with intention and a clear customer in mind. So let's recap. In this video, we walk through how to create designs that don't just look good, but actually connect. We talked about emotional triggers like humor and sentiment and identity, and how to combine those triggers with the niche and customer identity work we did in the Getting Seen video. We talked about why discovery scrolling is a non-negotiable habit if you want to create with confidence, and we walked through 3 different design styles you can use to bring these ideas to life, no matter what niche you're in. Each one of these used a different approach, but they all shared the same goal: to create something that your customer doesn't just see, but feels connected to, because this is the heart of getting your listings loved. And the best part, this process is repeatable. You can apply this approach across every one of the 5 niche themes we've talked about before, whether you're designing for teachers or pet lovers or sports parents or milestone moments or anyone else your shop serves. And while we looked at these from the perspective of apparel designs, this approach can be used on other in-demand products as well. Remember all of the examples we looked at earlier with candles and ornaments and even journals. Now, if you're ready to start brainstorming your own ideas using these same strategies, got a few free resources waiting for you in the description. Make sure you grab my Niche Creator GPT, which will help you generate niche and tone design ideas in seconds, along with the free design prompt to get your creative wheels turning with the line of cut design style, which then will lead us into our next video. A design your buyer loves is one thing, but a design that converts, that's what we're covering when we come back in the next one. We'll walk through how to get your listings sold, including the anatomy of a high converting listing, mock-ups to help sell the product, and other things like pricing and photos and listing videos, everything Etsy looks for to rank your listing higher. So if you haven't already, take 2 seconds and hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so that you don't miss the next video in the series. And if you're looking for even more support beyond this series, I've got you covered. Inside the BizBot Besties group, you'll find a collection of powerful AI tools I created for print-on-demand sellers like you, including tools for niches, designs, SEO, planning and time management, and more. Or you can check out my Pod Essentials mini membership, where I provide niche and trend reports each month to keep your shop growing and inspired. And if you're ready for full strategy and support from me and a community of growth-minded sellers, my Simply Thrive membership is the best place to plug into deeper learning, resources, and support. Everything's linked below, so feel free to explore what fits best for where you are in your journey. My goal is to make this process easier for you because I know how overwhelming it can feel when you're just getting started or even trying to get back on track. In the meantime, stay focused, my friends, and keep taking action and never stop pursuing excellence in your business. Thanks for watching. I'm so glad you're here. I'll see you in the next one.